Hello everybody, it's Mike here at Game from Scratch, and today we are looking at the NeoAxis engine, specifically because NeoAxis 2019.3 was just released. Now I'm going to go into a bit about what that 2019.3 release was in just a few moments, but first I'm going to here is NeoAxis. I am running in their editor right now. It is a completely integrated environment, so you can create your levels, preview your levels, build your stuff. You've got a code editor built in, a project manager, and everything else you would expect. Like I said, this is actually a shockingly complete game engine. Unfortunately, the tooling only runs on Windows. There was an entry under Wine for testing and compatibility, but it does seem to be a little dated. You can see the performance is pretty solid. This is one of the demonstrations that ships with it. You see you have things like path objects. You can place scene entities into the scenes. You can easily import your own assets. You have your scene graph over here, your properties over here. You can see things are kind of built out of components, but not in the way that you would particularly think. A component over here is made up of pieces, but it isn't composition like you traditionally expect. Over here you have all of the resources available to your game. You'll notice here, and we're going to look through a couple of these, the samples are very, they ship with it and are very complete in what they've got in scope. And this is one of the examples. This is the sci-fi demo. You can also see all the pieces that make it up. So everything you would expect is here. So the game models are here. You could drill down. You've got previews. So if I grab a fighter and we open it up here, you can see a preview of it in action down here in the preview window. In terms of coding, you have a couple of options. You've got C# and their own visual programming languages as options, and there is actually a C# IDE built directly in. So first, let's flip over to NeoAxis' website for just a second. It is available at neoaxis.com. I will, of course, link this in the linked article down below. You will find some key details about NeoAxis. First off, let me zoom this in a bit. It is free and partially open source. Pieces of this are available in open source, but not the entire thing. Built on a modern architecture, built-in C# and visual scripting tools, complete set of tools, modern editor design, and a .NET API. Now, one of the obvious questions that I think many of you content, such as a water, a shader implementation, realistic materials pack, and the 3D low-poly medieval house pack. And nothing here apparently costs. Back over to the game engine itself, and we'll go into one of these more simple examples. So we come down here, you'll see they've got a number of different examples. What we want is to go under starter content, scenes, and then you'll see here, for example, there's a C# scripting scene. It's very straightforward. You'll see you have this one object orbiting around another object. And if we expand out that scene itself, you will see it is built up a number of components. Those components are over here as well. And one of those components is a C# script. You can see the code directly right here that is managing this rotation. Or we can click right here and actually have it open up directly in the editor. And you will notice we get code completion, and it automatically fixed my typo. So you do get this embedded editor with real-time compilation, which is definitely nice. So if I save that, that should go away. Semicolon expected. All right, did you do a build? I might have to do a run or a build on it. But you see there is full-blown C# integration in here. Now, if I also go back here to the examples, we can also go, pretty sure there is another example. Yep, so here we go, scripting flow graph. So let's open this guy up, and this is another example, same thing, but in this particular case, it is being controlled by a script object. Just a second. In this case, you'll notice over here, instead of C#, we have flow graph. Let's open that flow graph up, and you can see the visual scripting interface that is actually controlling things. So it's getting the engine time as an input, pass that in, multiplying it. It's basically normalizing it, using that as part of a rotation, multiplying that by, let's see what we're doing, the components, value, and so on. And then at the very end, we're calling out to this guy right here. And you see you've got hookups into all of the pieces that we're dealing with. So everything that is exposed out there, the body in this case, has all of its methods and properties exposed out, and you can use them in C# or you can use them in this visual scripting system. You'll notice that across the top here, we do have a tabbed-based flow going on. So you've really got your choice. You can have things open up using C#, or you can have them working with their visual flow graph. Now, if we go back to C# and I pick an object in the scene, you'll notice I can actually go to the events category here, and we can easily hook up an event for everything here. So if we wanted to fire into an event for name changed for some bizarre reason, we just come down here, add a C# handler, and we can add a new component, new script directly into that component. So with whatever I just had selected, I'm not sure which one it was, there'll now be a C# script component attached to it. Here is your code, and you can now just start coding away. Yeah, so I'm not actually going to do any code, but at least that shows you the process of hooking code up to objects in the scene. It's pretty straightforward and clean on the whole. There are a couple things that are a little confusing. For example, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to show you, this is the root of our scene graph. And I could come in here and I can say new object, and you see we've got a ton of different stuff built in off the hop. So we've got our two different kinds of programming options here. We've got a full UI system, and you can actually visually create your own UIs. It's pretty powerful. So if you need to have a user interface for your machine, this is actually completely built in. This is something that like the likes of CryEngine and I believe Lumberyard still don't even have this functionality. A number of different scene objects such as materials. There's a full material shader programming language built in. Various different scene objects you can build in, such as fog boxes, terrain. We'll get back to terrain in just a second, but yeah, there's quite a bit here. There's all the primitives you would expect. We've got full physics support built in, including so I could create a rigid body. We'll bring that property in. So there you see a rigid body. It's got the components that you would expect. And what you are seeing here is a big chunk of what is new in 2019.3. So you have terrain support now. So you can make naturescapes like this. As you can see, the performance is actually pretty solid. I'm doing a screen record right now. I'm getting good graphics out of this result. And I'm running this on an older laptop, a 970M GeForce. So the performance is definitely solid. The graphics are good. I applaud them in that regard. I would, again, like to see the component system maybe made a little bit more intuitive and logical. Maybe streamline this user interface up here a bit, but there is quite a bit here. So this new landscape functionality is definitely part of 2019.3. And the other thing they built in, and this is kind of unique in a way, is you've got Builder 3D built in. This is sort of like, what do they call it? Scene Builder? No. Pro Builder in Unity 3D. So you can basically create objects directly in the user interface right here. So you can build polygonal objects that you can drop directly in, and you can use them for, doing a carve out of your level, or if you're going for that low detail polygonal work thing, you don't need to bring in a modeling tool. You can actually build from scratch using the tools available up here. So you can switch between the different editing mode. You can grab things vertex by vertex and edit in the scene. So those are two of the big things that were added in 2019.3. It's actually a pretty robust release if you think about it. But you can see the performance here, again, it's pretty good. And the render quality is pretty good. So let's head on back over here. So we got the terrain editor right now, so we can do, see, deformations and such. I can modify and landscape and so on. So let's head on over to the all about. Gives you an idea of what the performance of this engine is like, what the workflow of the engine is like. If you are a C# developer, it will be very obvious and intuitive to you. If you are interested in their visual programming language, that is an option as well. The UI, yeah, again, it could use comments down below, and I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.